I don't remember exactly when, but it was before he really got involved with Investaflex, before he formed that. He had turned around and come to give a presentation after church one Sunday on more or less this urgency of making sure you have a will and start thinking about financial things. And was a good thing for me because I'd been I had a business of my own, was busy and spending a lot of time at this. And by the end, February came around, I'd turn around and throw a little bit in an RSP, and of course, always it was less than what it should have been because this needed it more of that. And this had gone on for a few years, and I kept thinking, well, there's never going to be enough out of this to live on when you retire. I was very pleased. I felt good with Malcolm when he gave this presentation. We made an appointment and sort of went through some things what I had and what I hadn't done. And I was thinking in terms of what I would have to support my family, which even at that time looked like it was just going to be my wife and I. The kids were getting older, and but he says, well, yeah, but you got to think of yourself too, as well as the rest of the family. So he did some things. Looked at. My wife had been helping me do some bookwork and stuff at the station, but she'd really hadn't worked out since since we had a family. So it'd been many years. So she was at the time probably I wasn't even paying her anything other than what was gone. That was one thing that we talked about too, and I'll end up putting her on the payroll, and because she was doing a lot of book work at that time. So he wanted to make sure that there was something. So he took her assets too and figured them in so they would work out into something, which turned out later to be very good because my wife passed away about 3 years ago, a little over that, and but before then we had set up an annuity for her at retirement, and this will continue for a few more years. That I wouldn't have given a thought to doing even originally. So this was good, and we'd switched around some life insurances and stuff to and turn around, and by that time had done different things. So had a portfolio, you could call it, I guess, that was much different than what I had before I met Malcolm. We kept fairly close contact with Malcolm. We turned around and probably review things at least on a yearly basis. And since my wife died, we've looked at things a little differently and switched things around more frequently. And then I remarried, just this last summer, and so we had to look at I looked at a few things after my wife died. We made sure we had things switched over. A lot of it had to be done by somebody else, but his leading and suggestions and stuff were very valuable to doing things the way that I probably wouldn't have thought of doing some of the things. So I appreciate it. So I kept in contact with the company, and I really have felt quite at ease. He surrounded himself with good people, and it would appear, from what I can see, very knowledgeable people. Victor has been doing a lot of the straight financing ends, and of course Violet's been there a long time, and really works very well with them. And the rest of the staff too have been good. So we've kept in fairly close contact. And then when I was going to remarry, there again there was different suggestions, and I was aware of the fact that hadn't been aware too terribly long, but aware if you remarry, you got to make a new will out because your old will is null and void. as soon as you remarry, which is something that really surprised me when I found out. But I don't know who I found that out from, but it was before I really talked to Malcolm on it again. And so we discussed what some of the things he thought were directions we should go. My wife now, of course, it's her second marriage too. Her husband died a few years earlier, and she's got a family, and I got a family, and of course, when these things come in, you got to turn around and think. When we probably won't have that many more years together, so you got to be concerned about your original families, and we tailor-made. We had a pre-marriage nuptial agreement or prenuptial agreement and stuff made up, and different things, and Malcolm came up with a lot of good advice on these things too. I think the thing that stands out and always has from basically day one is just you could see the sincerity of Malcolm and the whole group. As the group developed, the big thing that seems to come across with Malcolm and Victor and all the rest of them you've dealt with is basically what's going to be best for the client, and which, as I say, was quite evident from the beginning and really right through up till now, and I've never had any other feeling. Basically, I think the big thing that comes out is just the attitude of Malcolm and all the employees, and I can feel that they are all concerned more about getting the right thing for their clients as opposed to just selling you something like it comes across from so many people. Yeah, you buy this because it's going to make me a buck. So I think that's the major thing, and I think that's been sort of always there. So it's been good feeling all the time. The approach comes across as being different than what I would think from a lot of companies, and basically, say when they're going back to when I was turning around and last minute buying RSPs and things, it was the idea there was, yeah, you buy, then we'll take your money. Where this way, it's they look for the best possible, or it comes across as the best possible plan for what the client needs. Well, the goals, of course, I think always the goals with me were just to be able to have enough money to live on. I had wanted to retire early, and I did. I quit working. I had planned to work probably a couple of years more, but I quit when I was between 60 and 61 because it was feasible at that time to get out of the business I was in, and thought maybe at the time I would do something again after a while, but it turned out that Malcolm showed me that money-wise you shouldn't have to if you keep living the way you have. Different if you go turn around and start just blowing money like crazy, and then you might run out of money. But if you live the kind of a lifestyle that you had lived so far, that there should be enough there. So, which is basically all I had ever hoped for. But I wouldn't hesitate at all to recommend Investaflex to anybody. No, not a question at all. I would be very happy to suggest to anybody that Investaflex is a good company to deal with.